guys, we're gonna record 2 vlogs in one day, but you're not gonna have to sit through 2 in one day unless you decide you want to. We're gonna go ahead and talk about Artblock. And those of you guys who know me, even in passing, you know that I am a comic artist and an art supply reviewer, and I do tutorials and stuff, so I'm always working on something. Artblock isn't necessarily something I deal with so much anymore. It is more burnout that I really struggle with. And burnout can cause Artblock. So that said, we'll go ahead and get the Artblock out of the way. When I can't think of ideas to draw, I usually work from reference. I do a lot of figure drawing studies. I'll draw my cat, I'll draw flowers, things that I enjoy that help me still build skill sets, that I can attach specific skills to, that doesn't require me to necessarily use the creative part of my brain because I'm tired or I'm burnt out or I've just had enough. But I still want to work on those skills. I highly recommend, if you're a watercolor comic artist, for example, that you do watercolor studies. And you try to do those studies the way, try to think of it as a fine art watercolorist. Not so much like, would this sell, or is this too conceptual, or whatever like that, but more just trying to capture what you see as accurately as possible, or try to practice a new technique. That's usually really inspiring for me. Now, going on to more long form things, I find that having a series or a long form project really helps me out. So for Kara, for example, I have a synopsis that I work on when I'm feeling fresh and the ideas are coming. So I know how my comic's gonna end, and I've known how my comic's gonna end since I started it. And I had like salient plot points along the way, and I'm just working on filling things in as inspiration strikes. So when I'm working on Kara, I usually know where I'm going. It's all about how do I get to where I want to go. And for that, if I'm having trouble thinking of things, I find that talking to people who enjoy my work and who care about me can be really helpful. Here in Nashville, I don't really have a lot of people that I can turn to for that. I do have Joseph, and he's phenomenal at it. He's super helpful, but I feel bad that he's always the person that I turn to. I'll also ask like my mom, and I do have comic friends, but they're all online. So then it becomes a game of trying to catch them when they're available. And sometimes that can put a chapter on hold for 2 weeks while I'm trying to get a hold of somebody who I really respect and who gives great critique opinions, but they're busy all the time or they're sick all the time. Sorry if I pause. As I mentioned in the prior video, I'm sitting out here with my cat and I'm trying to make sure he doesn't like make a run for it. So having people to talk to who are passionate about art and passionate about the type of art you do, be it kids comics or fine art or sculpture or children's books, it really can help a lot because it's a reminder of why you love what you love. Another thing that helps me is talking to my target audience. So when I get a chance to talk to young readers, especially young readers who have read my comic, they are always full of ideas, and I always want to hear their ideas because I want to make Kara more geared to what they enjoy. I want them to see something that they want to see in it, as well as things that would surprise them. I mean, you want to leave some room. Like, for example, when I was a girl and I read The Borrowers, I was horrifically disappointed that there was no cat riding in it. I was like, what a wasted opportunity, which was kind of like the motivation behind making sure that Kara rides Pancake in 7-inch Kara. So you do want to leave some room for other young minds to be like, well, I could make this better if I just did this. But you know, it is inspiring to be able to take their opinions into consideration. So when the option is available to me, I do enjoy going into classrooms, and I do enjoy going into libraries and teaching kids because that gets me pumped up. It reminds me of why I love comics. Oh gee. So when it comes to the blog, burnout with that is a real issue because a lot of people read it. I have over 2K hits a day on that thing, but nobody ever says anything. Nobody engages me on it, and that is exhausting. It is exhausting creating for people who never talk to you, never check in with you, don't have anything to say at all. You're just screaming into the void. I mean, if I was gonna do that, I would just keep a diary. So the blog is often the hardest thing for me to work on because I get the least amount of feedback on it. And with that, I have found that doing series is helping. So the watercolor basic series gives me a target range of topics that I want to cover. It does help to go over to Twitter and talk to people who are interested in watercolor and find out what sort of help they need with watercolor illustration, what their weak points are. That gives me an idea of where the need is in the market and where I can fill that. Again, sorry, keeping an eye on the cat. Honestly though, for me, although I do fan art and I do enjoy doing fan art, it is not my bread and butter. It is not where I find the most inspiration. Every now and then I am inspired to do it, but I feel like I personally, unless it's just something that nobody ever draws fan art for, I don't have any new ideas to add to the existing cadre of ideas. So I don't really stress myself out about that. Now, when I'm feeling really art blocked and uninspired, that is usually a great time to just sit and do figure studies, but sometimes I don't want to do that. So something else that I think is fun to do is I like taking Japanese emoji without knowing what they mean and translating them to facial expressions for my characters based on my interpretation of what the emoji means. Knowing what it means sometimes is less, it like hinders me. Because I feel like I have to draw it a certain way then, and sometimes I get these really great facial expressions out of emoji that don't mean what I drew at all, and that's okay. It's all practice. And a lot of what I do in my sketchbook is not intended for other people to see, so it's okay if it sucks. And if it does turn out not as good as I want it to, I'll redraw it, or I'll put a piece of tracing paper over it, or and redraw it on that, or a post-it note and redraw it on that. I use cheap sketchbooks. I don't like precious sketchbooks, so that way if I run through the pages on stuff that isn't, nobody would be impressed by, I don't care. I'm not doing that to impress anybody. And you guys have seen me fail a lot on this channel, like a lot. And it doesn't mean that I am not afraid of failure, because I sure am. I mean, I don't know too many people who aren't. I've just kind of had to get over it, because I figure me failing for you guys hopefully gives you guys the courage to try new things and take risks. There's always a small part of me that knows there are people who watch it and they think, man, she's an idiot, or she sucks at drawing, or she really shouldn't be doing this. Like, she needs to go get a day job, right? Like, I know there are people like that. Come on. There are always going to be people like that, but that's okay, because I'm not making these videos for them. I'm making these videos for like the 40-something-year-old who has always wanted to draw, but has always felt too much pressure to do the other things in their life, and they know they didn't put the time into learning how to draw when they were younger, so it's not going to be very good. I want to give them courage. Or the teenager who, their school doesn't have any money for art classes, or it doesn't think it's worth putting the money towards, or whatever. So they're having to teach themselves. I want them to not feel alone. I want them to know that you can come from that kind of a background and still achieve things. Or, people my own age who maybe they're getting started, or maybe they've been doing it for a while and they're having a lot of trouble getting traction. I just want them to not feel lonely, because I feel lonely. So the best way I can think of to combat stuff like that is by putting stuff out there. So, I mean, you have to subvert that fear of failure to the best of your ability. And it's hard. I have anxiety problems. I've talked about them on Twitter pretty candidly, and I have depression problems, and it's a bad combination. I mean, that's like the nihilist combination, where it's like everything I do sucks, nothing I do matters, but if I don't do stuff, I'm just gonna stagnate and die. So what do I do, right? And you just have to keep putting it out there and keep trying, because if you give up, you're not going to be able to escape the situation you're currently in. So that's sort of my take on Artblock. I don't know if it was helpful for you guys. I hope it was. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. As always, it's really great to see you guys. I'm Becca Hilburn from That Is Soup Studios. Bye.